The air in Oconla hadn't changed. It still smelled of roasted maize, red dust, and nostalgia. The kind that pinches your heart just enough to remind you where you came from. But Dara? Dara smelled like imported body spray, stress, and borrowed confidence. She stepped down from the black Prado Jeep like she had just been teleported from a page of a fashion magazine. Her Ankara dress sparkled, more sequins than fabric, and her acrylic nails looked like could poke through glass. "Look who finally decided to remember her roots," muttered a bystander, watching the woman who descended as though Oconla had applied to meet her. Dara ignored the murmurs. Her heels clicked on the uneven ground as if each step declared, "I don't belong here." She adjusted her Gucci sunglasses, rented but who needed to know, held her head high and made her way toward the market square. She came for her uncle's funeral, but if she was being honest, she also came to show off, to flaunt her success, or at least the image of it. It had been 10 years since she left Oconla for Abuja, and she had worked hard to become the envy of her old classmates, even if that meant pretending she still had it all together. But Oconla had its own plans, and so did Karma. There was smoke, the sweet, smoky scent of roasting fish and yam that danced through the air like it knew it was loved. Dara turned her nose in disgust. "You," she muttered, "this smell again!" Then she saw them. 2 women, wrappers tied tightly around their waists, sweating under the hot sun. Their faces glistened with oil and effort. One was gently flipping fish with a brush of palm oil and pepper sauce. The other was slicing yam on a wooden board with the precision of a Michelin star chef, though her kitchen was a roadside grill. Dara squinted, and then her eyes widened. "Wait a minute," she whispered. It was Janet and Neen, her former classmates. She gasped loudly and burst into a laugh so dramatic it echoed across the stalls. "Chai! So this is what you girls have become!" she shrieked, loud enough to summon nearby traders and their goats. "Roasting yam and fish by the roadside? Ah! I can't relate, oh! Abuja's soft life is the only life I know." Some people chuckled. Others looked uncomfortable. The market went awkwardly silent for a beat too long. Janet wiped her brow and smiled. Nenny looked up, nodded, and continued flipping fish. Neither said a word, but Heaven had already started taking notes. Dara wasn't always this insufferable. No, in secondary school she had been worse. She was beautiful, yes, brilliant too, but dangerous when you gave her a microphone or a mirror. She had a tongue sharper than her eyebrow pencil. She didn't just insult, she performed it. She could roast a person with words and still have time to correct her lipstick. Janet was the class governor, calm, neat handwriting, always reporting noisemakers. Nene, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the girl who sometimes came to school barefoot because her only slippers had broken again, the one whose lunch was often dry gari or nothing at all. Dara once looked at Nene's feet and announced in front of the whole class, "Your ancestors must have eaten your shoes. Check their shrine." The class roared with laughter. Nene had smiled then too, a sad, quiet smile, and packed her books. Karma had marked that moment in ink. By the time they reached SS3, the unexpected happened. Dara's father, the one who paid for her wigs, creams and pride, died suddenly. Dara was too proud to ask for help. She didn't tell anyone. She borrowed clothes, she borrowed hair, she borrowed peace. But in Wake, she failed. She never told anyone. Instead, she lied that she had received a scholarship abroad. She left Oconla, head held high, whispering promises of Paris, fashion school, and success. In truth, she went to Abuja and learned how to fake wealth. She started a business built on lies, packaging and presentation, funded by borrowed funds and sweet-tongued investors. She threw parties for Instagram and forgot to pay rent. She posted soft life and drank Gary indoors. But when her biggest investor vanished overnight with millions in capital, the structure she built with pride and glue collapsed like a house made of burnt biscuits. Police began to call, landlords began to shout, banks began to freeze. She had to run. When Dara returned to Oconla the second time, there was no glittering Ankara, no Prado Jeep. She wore a hoodie, not for fashion, but to hide. She had only 2 boxes of clothes left and 10 million naira in debt, and a dignity so broken it couldn't afford a repair. She walked past the same market, and the smell of grilled fish hit her again. This time it smelled like shame. She tried to walk quickly past the stall, but God and Janet saw her. Dara froze. Slowly she turned. "Hi," she whispered. "I was just passing." "You look tired. Sit down. You want some yam?" She hesitated. She hadn't eaten all day. She sat. They gave her a steaming plate of roasted yam with pepper sauce and soft grilled croaker. And for the first time in a long time, she cried. Janet led Dara through a back gate, past a few plastic chairs and buckets, to a neatly painted bungalow. "This way." Dara looked around in disbelief. There, behind the stall, stood an office space. Tiled floors, glass doors, 2 laptops, a printer, whiteboards with supply chain diagrams. "This is where we run the business," Janet said. Nee nodded. "We have 5 kiosks around town. This is our HQ." Dara blinked rapidly. "You mean, this is from fish?" Nenny smiled. "And yam." They sat. She told them everything. The failed business, the fake lifestyle, the empty accounts, and how she couldn't go back. They didn't flinch. Instead, Janet handed her a cold bottle of water and a lifeline. "We're expanding," she said. "We need someone to manage our Abuja outlet. You have experience. Come work with us." Dara gasped. "Me? After everything I've said?" Janet smiled. "God lifted us not just to shine, but to light others too." Dara started the very next week. There was no air conditioner, no pedestal, no glam. She woke up at 5 a.m., swept floors, cleaned grills, lifted bags of yam and updated sales logs on a dusty laptop. At first it was embarrassing, then it became healing. She began to enjoy the work. She learned to cut fish perfectly. She learned the cost of tomatoes during scarcity. She learned that dignity wasn't in heels, but in honest work. 6 months later, they promoted her to Abuja branch manager. 1 year later, she launched her own brand, Dara's Delight, a line of spicy, grilled fish sauces. The soft life returned, but this time it came with substance. At the Okonla Women in Business Summit, Dara stood in front of a crowd that once knew her as a rude classmate with fast fashion sense. She wore a modest yet stunning Ankara gown, simple makeup, her natural hair in curls. She held the mic, hands shaking, and then she spoke. "I once mocked women who sold roasted yam and fish. I thought their hands were dirty. But today, those hands fed me, trained me, and gave me a second chance. I wore pride like perfume, not knowing it stank. But these women, Janet and Neen, they taught me how to dream again. I don't just sell fish now, I sell redemption. And I'm proud." The crowd stood, applause thundered. Janet and Nini were in the audience, tears rolled down their cheeks. For once, Dara didn't feel like a fraud, she felt whole. Moral of the story, never mock the hands that feed others, for tomorrow you may need their crumbs to survive. True success is not loud, it's consistent, it's humble, and sometimes it wears an apron soaked in fish oil. Your roots may be dusty, but they're deep enough to grow an empire, if only you water them with humility.
Kindly support the channel by subscribing. Turn on the notification bell so you'd get notified when we drop another mind-blowing video. Also, do not forget to like and share to family and friends. See you in our next video.